This is an NP-F compatible replacement battery. I was sent this battery to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you $30. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. So inside the outer bag, we have an inner bubble wrap bag and a cardboard box. All right, we have part number here, F960TAC, so I'm assuming this is a F960 compatible replacement battery. Inside the box, we have a USB A to C cable, the battery unit itself, and there is no documentation. So there is a button. When you push the button, we get some green bars on this battery indicator. There's also ports on the back here. So we have a little rubber plug, and there is a USB A port and a USB C port. Now the bottom of the battery here says it is 71 watt hours of capacity, 7.4 volts, 9.6 amp hours. And it's a replacement or compatible with the NP F960 or NP F970 style batteries. Okay, so plugging into the USB A port, we're getting 5.08 volts out. I'm going to plug in a load here. And it looks like the load is drawing 2.7 amps, and the voltage is sagged down to 4.7 volts. So it looks like you could say this is a 3 amp. Well, not quite 3. It shut down when I started turning it up a little higher. So maybe 2.5 amp output. Alright, so delivering 2.5 amps, the voltage sags a little bit to 4.7, but it's basically providing 5 volts at least 2 amps, maybe 2.5. So I've plugged it into a quick charge capable device, and it is still going 5 volts, so it does not look to have the ability to go up to like 9 or 12 volts from that USB A port. So it looks like the USB-C port is in only. I plugged my phone into this guy. I was trying to see, if it would do power delivery at higher levels than 5 volts, and my phone is actually charging the battery at 5 volts. Let me plug this into a power supply. So I've plugged the battery into a power supply, and it is drawing at the 5 volt level 1.2 to 1.3 amps. So I would say really this is kind of a power bank feature of, you get 5 volts to 2 amps out of this USB A port. You can charge it with the USB-C port, but the rate's pretty darn slow. So for the most part, I would say ignore the USB ports on this battery and use this as a Sony's compatible NP-F 960 style battery. Alright, this guy snaps into my light and powers it as I would expect. I also have this battery backplate, which instead of snapping to the back of the battery, will snap into one of these side slots here. And I've found that some batteries don't click into there, and this is not an exception. It kind of holds in place, but it doesn't latch. I've found that sometimes I need to file down parts of this guy just a little bit for it to work with this battery backing plate. And that is possibly a problem with the backing plate, but I think it's more a problem with the batteries, because there are some batteries that snap in there without modifications. So I've had a similar problem with catches not catching in this thing on this battery, and I was able to make it work by basically hitting this side here with a file and moving it that way a little bit. And so if you compare these two, you can see here this little notch is just a little bit too far that way, and so if you grind it down a bit, you can get it to catch in that battery back plate. But, you got to do extra work. I took a file and ground down that thing a little bit, and so now when I put this in the battery back plate, and snap it forward, that thing clicks down and it holds in place. So I can push it up and slide it back and it'll work now. Alright, I have a higher powered smart battery charger here. Plugging in from the factory, it says this battery is about 93% charged, and it's charging it at 17 watts. So we're going to charge this guy all the way up, and then we'll do a runtime test with one of my lights. At 2:30 p.m. I started this 20-watt light at the brightest setting, and I have a clock with the time-lapse camera watching it, and we will see how long it runs my light. Well, it didn't quite make it to the 3-hour mark here. When I push this button, it goes to the very last green battery bar. Alright, to figure out how many watt hours this guy has, I'm going to charge it up from empty. I've reset my watt hour counter. It is charging at basically the 5-volt level. It's drawing 2 amps, so it's charging at 10 watts. So it's probably going to take at least, I would expect, 5 to 6 hours to charge this guy back up at that rate. Okay, so the battery indicator is fully solid. It's currently drawing 0.2 amps, or about 1 watt. That's probably just enough to light up that light. So it's basically done charging. And it took 37 watt hours to fill this guy back up. So this battery definitely has less capacity than other 970 style batteries. I would say it's more like a 560 or a 6 something or other than the full 970. You know, it ran the light for a decent amount of time, just not as long as some of my other batteries. And it definitely looks like, you know, the battery capacity is maybe 30, 35 watt hours, something in that range. I'm going to give it another hour or two and see if it'll go down to 0 at some point, but I think it's pretty much fully charged. Alright, this guy's just been drawing about 1 watt continuously, so I don't think it's going to get any lower than that, but it's fully charged. You know, it's up to 38 watt hours here to charge it up. Alright, so 38 watt hours is the upper bound on the capacity of this battery. I'd like to point out that 38 watt hours is significantly less than the 71 watt hours on the nameplate. To get a lower bound on the capacity of the battery, we are going to discharge this guy via the USB port. I'm doing this at the 2 amp rate, so it's basically almost 5 volts at 2 amps and it's drawing 10 watts. So I'm just going to discharge it all the way down until the battery turns off, and we'll see how many watt hours it can provide. This guy had turned off overnight. I pushed the button, we got 1 battery bar, and it started providing power again, so I'm going to let it go until it shuts itself down a second time, but I suspect it's pretty much empty at this point. Yeah, just a minute or two and it shut itself off again, so it's empty. Alright, so it delivered 26 watt hours out of the USB electronics there. So it took 30 some to charge up, 26 delivered. It's probably pretty close to 32 watt hour battery capacity inside. So, you know, it's probably half the capacity of the nameplate. So I can't really recommend this battery. Alright, I have reset the watt hour meter. We're going to charge it back up and check the amount of power it takes to power back up again. Alright, fully charged again. It took 38 watt hours to charge this guy up. So I'm going to say probably absolute max is 38 watt hour capacity. Probably actual capacity is 32, 35 maybe, being generous. Significantly less than the 71 watt hour capacity on the nameplate here. So this battery mostly works. The USB works. It's 5 volts at 2 amps, either in or out, so nothing special, but it does work. And the battery gauge here is nice and bright and green, and it gives you an idea of, you know, the remaining charge.